again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scallion, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. Hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again. What we gonna eat no money, what we at you, eat no at you. Covid money, miss away, eat the yellow correct you. Use the youth, the money, waste my most mantis statue. Say me like a catch you, but we got in a figure you. Take this spit of money, girl, and say that it's not you. One day the man above end up in my gut up. Too much it in the kitchen, so my fly by like a patu. My singers and DJs and social media's coming at you. It burn me 300% free. It burn me garbage pile of it. It burn me. Give the teacher them raise. It burn me. I see corruption fees. It burn me. Mash down the people them house. It burn me. Every day appear arms out. It burn me. Appear money them a thief. It burn me. And them a sell out the beach. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scallion, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again. Come me say dig up all the charities and all of the givers. Some a go like say them powerful, me no make a bigger. The already promises, none of them not deliver. Cut up the youth, they rap and they down in our fever. Member bowl honey and they lie them tell. Corruption smell and they pocket them swell. When police don't a market like Satan out of hell, go mash up people start like thief when them sell. It burn me. Or they treat the market man. It burn me. Or them a treat the cat man. It burn me. Or they treat the peanut man. It burn me. Or them a treat the dirt man. It burn me. Or them a treat the sun man. It burn me. Or them a treat policeman. It burn me. Or them a treat soldier man. It burn me. Or them a treat everyone. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scallion, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me.
I mean, I say a couple to the flex they represent for Wayne Global TV. There. So I say, you know the code in the Wayne Global TV is what fully blessed on 90 days. So I say, yeah man, to the fullest. Yeah man, make sure them log in to Wayne Global TV. So I say, check it out. So I say, one cup of flex. So I say, Wayne Global. When you watch you know, feel my plan up and I try to put them money pan we head. But man, I live too long, them want Wayne Global fitted. To him juggle so smooth that them want him life for dread. I chew the bank, I like the break, but we ain't all about the bread. When we open up in the ears and no listen when we said, cause we lyrics them so smooth like the linen on the bed. Them want with a fall, chill living pan the edge, I must say true, we make this them. We ain't Global TV, we are 90, and 90. Who Jaja bless, say no man can curse. Give me the Range Rover, who no drive years. Boom! We in Global TV to the fullest one cup of excellence. See me?
It was reported that Mrs. Silvera died in her sleep at home on November 10. Sources say a photograph of the scene after the police were called showed blood stains, and that ignited the suspicion of the investigators. Things began to look bleak for the former politician a month later after an autopsy discovered bullet fragments in his wife's body. It further revealed that she was shot twice in the abdomen. That discovery triggered a new round of investigations by the Major Investigation Division, which is spearheading the investigation. The incident has resulted in widespread discourse, with Mr. Silvera's lawyer, Peter Champagne, cautioning social media, arguing that public comments could negatively impact the victim's young children. Melissa Silvera was laid to rest last Friday. Her husband, Jordan, openly cried through the tribute as he clinged on to his youngest son. Of note, none of the tributes mentioned Mr. Silvera, including this one by former PNP President and Prime Minister P.J. Patterson. He said, "This tribute ranks among the most difficult to write. So much has to be left unsaid."
We were told that she died peacefully in her sleep. But the more revelation is exposing that many in the JCF, many in the People's National Party's hierarchy knew on the 10th of November that Melissa Silvera was murdered. Good evening and welcome to this year Drive Time London Lunchtime Global program. Good evening to those on TikTok, to those on Twitch, on the X, on Facebook, on YouTube. Good evening and welcome. The plot thickens in the murder of Melissa Silvera. Who else other than Julian Silvera may have been responsible for the death of Melissa Silvera? If Patricia Duncan Sutherland is saying we don't know who murdered Melissa Silvera, was there another invited guest at the Silvera's residence? Only time will tell us as more hole is poked into an already leaking can. I want to say good evening to everyone on the live this evening, to those in the chat. Good evening all and welcome. Good evening to Beat and Teach. Good evening to Sunshine. Good evening to Natalia Freeman, Head Teacher K. Good evening. Good evening, Debbie Jervis. Good evening, Angela 48. Good evening to who else is here? Rasta Saints, first time seeing you. Good evening and welcome. Good evening to Jamaican Foodie. Good evening, Brenda. Good evening. Good evening and welcome to everyone. Good evening, Parkins. Good evening and welcome. Good evening, Professor Gorgeous Lady. Good evening and welcome. Thank you all for being here this evening. An almighty glare. I can't barely say anything, because Nova, good evening and welcome. First time seeing you in the chat. The hope of continuous reading and info on computer. My eyes are full with glare. Kate M, good evening and welcome. Good evening. I really appreciate your all support. Thank you for joining me. But before we get into the Silvera issue, I want to look at Mark Golden in Western Jamaica, particularly Hanover. Who just done dance and sit down and fold their hand, but judge for yourselves.
When we are in government, Hanover was a peaceful place. Never hear about a problem in Hanover. Since this Labour Party government come in, Hanover has become a different kind of place. And we have to fix the crime and violence problem, not just in Hanover, but all over Jamaica. That is one of the missions of our government, is to set that trend back in the right direction. Under the People's National Party, murders were 25% lower per annum in each of the 4 years than any of the 8 years since. Brogard, when he's talking about people can sleep with their windows and doors open, that was a lie. And 8 years after that lie, still a lie. And the People's National Party have to come back so we can bring different strategies to bear and deal with this crime and violence problem and do our best to make Jamaica safe for each and every one to live comfortably in their home. It matters because the healthcare system is in a crisis. And all them a talk about them a build hospital or extend hospital. Because I'm not... The problem is that when you get sick in this country, dog, name your supper. You go to hospital, there is no bed. There is no bed for you. You have to end up spending time, hours, days on a bench or on a chair. And it can't work. We need to deal with that problem, and the government don't have no plan to deal with that problem. There's a crisis in education. Where over 30% of the primary school children are graduating and they can't read or write. And we have an apartheid education system where a few schools get excellent results and far too many do not. And we have to solve that problem starting where it starts, early childhood and primary, and sort that out because your future depends on that, and the Labour Party are not dealing with that. So comrades, this election matters. When I told the government, cushion the crisis, them never pay me no mind. Cost of living gone sky high. In 2019, before COVID, inequality in this country got worse. In 2019, before COVID, poverty in this country got significantly worse under the Labour Party government. So when I hear Silvera talk about, yesterday I was at a function, and him talk about a caring economy. He can't talk about a caring economy. He has no credibility to talk about caring for nothing other than his friends and his cronies who have made this the most corrupt government in independent Jamaica. So, comrades.
Is Mark Golding's Jamaica next Prime Minister, or is it a ventriloquist holding a mic? For God's sake, I have to really scratch my head when Mark Golding speaks. What on earth is going on, Mr. Golding? Hanover might be feeling Mark Golding. Hanover might want to return Mark Golding, but is the rest of the island feeling Mark Golding? Is Mark Golding connected? Is the ventriloquist of a Mark Golding connecting with the people? I'm just leaving it for you to judge for yourself. Shashamaliland, good afternoon and welcome. Kate M, good afternoon and welcome. I hope you can hear now. Brenda, good afternoon and welcome. Natalia Freeman and everyone, good afternoon and welcome. Janet Bailey, good afternoon and welcome. Was someone standing behind Mark Golding, telling Mark Golding what to say? Or did Mark Golding came out terribly unresearched? Yes, Mark Golding is doing his island-wide road tour. What I'm not hearing quite clear is the policies coming through. I'm not hearing what percentage of pay rise will Mark Golding give to the public services. I'm not hearing how Mark Golding will invest. Prof. Gorgeous Lady, good afternoon. I'm not hearing how Mark Golding will invest and how much he will invest in our education system. I'm not hearing Mark Golding telling us what his alternative for putting more bed capacity, X-rays, CT scans, MRI, dialysis machine. I'm not hearing that policy level coming through. I'm not hearing Mark Golding telling us the type of crime fighting that we will see under a Mark Golding, the type of policy that a Mark Golding government, the type of independency that a Mark Golding government will give the JCF and all the different arms in the JCF when it comes to crime fighting. I'm not hearing it. Yes, criticizing Andrew here, there, and everywhere. leading from behind the nation and from those around you. I am not hearing the policies coming through. The likability, Mark Golden. For about 3 years now, you're having a great struggle to get a grip of the likability factor, the presentability factor, the wow factor. That is not coming through island-wide. There's a lot of apathy, Mark Golden. A lot of people is fed up with the crooked regime. A lot of people is fed up with the crooked regime we've had in our country for the last 8 years that has failed miserably on most of their promises, has failed us on crime. Even when they continue to massage the figures of crime into the election, itemizing crime, and massaging the figures in order to have you believe that crime is going down. Mr. British, good evening and welcome. Would have you believe by pigeonholing and massaging the figures, they would have you believe that crime, Dorothy Elliott, good afternoon and welcome. They would have you believe that crime is going down. But look at the rate of crime, violent crime, that we've been seeing since the 1st of January. But because the Prime Minister is going into a local government election, they would want to have you believe that crime is really going down. That, amongst other things, the Prime Minister is just going around the island, making false promises that he will no doubt fail on and will not deliver on, because he is 8 years late on other policies and other promises. Douglas Allen and Lilith Foster, good afternoon and welcome. 8 years late on his 100-day promise. 8 years late on his 100-day promise. The Prime Minister is still going around the island with a load of promises in order to buy more votes at the ballot box. I will continue the housing trust every time he uses that. I will raise the alarm. The housing trust, as we know, is awash with taxpayers' money. It is one of the portfolio in the office of the Prime Minister. Means that the Prime Minister have your taxpayers' money who pay mandatory into the National Housing Trust Fund. The Prime Minister is using that money across the island to buy grace and favor from the disadvantaged, those who are socially, financially, and economically at a disadvantage. PM announces social housing for tourism workers. St. James, Jamaica tourism workers who live in a substandard condition or to benefit from the housing solution under a partnership between the Jamaica Tourist Enhancement Fund and the new social housing program. Is this the Prime Minister using the social housing to buy votes in Western Jamaica. Because we see how much the young people in Western Jamaica were calling out to the Prime Minister just weeks ago for more opportunity, for more jobs, more opportunity to do their own businesses. The little bit of hand to mouth, now work and can work. Is this a ploy to secure votes from those in the tourism industry? Is this a vote buying? Is this one of the other vote buying ploy from our Prime Minister? Why our taxpayers at home is not standing up, pushing back and demonstrating against this Prime Minister for the inappropriate use of the National Housing Trust Fund? Why Jamaicans at home who have worked so hard, contributed to the National Housing Trust, and some of you found out last year that your employers who are deducting your salary under the government scheme of the National Housing Trust is not even turning over your contribution to the tax administrative authorities. So wherever you turn, and a leeching one a scam on, and everybody we can get them hand pan them money. If we not have in a pocket, pickpocket take you out. If we not have in a leeching bank, him and his friend them just take it out, so without no redress. If you have it in the public purse, your mayors and your councillors and your MPs swindle it however they chose. They continue to do this because the people refuse to take a stand. The people refuse to take a stand, and that's why they continue day in, day out to behave in the way they do. It's not enough. It's not enough from the people. The people need to demand more. The wage back and forth between the government and UTEC continues. Not just with UTEC, we see the other day as well, they told those at the Firearm Licensing Authority, Sandra Levy, good evening and welcome, that they won't be getting a pay increase. Is that a further message that those in the public sector will hear going forward in this foot-dragging pay negotiation with the government and public sector workers? But if the government continues to turn a blind eye to public sector workers for an increase in salary, what is the People's National Party and public increase in public sector workers' salary should they become the next government? And while Andrew Holness and Nigel Clark and his cabinet is refusing to negotiate and give a livable offer, a livable wage offer to public sector workers, will the public sector workers respond to Nigel Clark and Andrew Holness at the polls, whether it be at the local government level or the central government level? Carla Williams, good evening and welcome. Because if we have a government that continues to push back on the increase of public sector workers when they give themselves a 300% pay rise, after they gave themselves a 300% pay rise from the public purse, they're telling public sector workers who are the administrative and operational arm of government, who without those people, a governance system could not work. Without the public sector, without the public servants, a government system could not function. And this is the same government that is telling all those people essential to the running of a country. After we pay ourselves 300%, you have to stay on quite a meager salary, which cannot even cover your living expenses. That cannot cover your living expenses. And we are not prepared to give you a dime more. You have to struggle on that. Tie your knot and survive is what the government is saying. When we have lavishly raised our salary, is the People's National Party ready to have a negotiation, should they become the next government, with public sector workers in order to come to an agreed livable income that would allow our public sector workers, like our teachers, nurses, and doctors who regularly brain drain from our country, to stay and help to continue to build Jamaica. Let's see what we will get from the People's National Party at the policy level. But for now, the nation may be feeling them, but there is a lot not quite cutting through. And finally, I will go back to the Silvera issue. Who was at the Silvera's residence on the night of the murder? Who have the police questioned? Has the police taken anybody's phone? Anybody who was at the crime scene after the crime, is the police investigating anyone? And has the police seized anyone's phone as a part of the investigation of the cover-up? Let's listen back together. Listen carefully for yourself. This recorded, and then we will discuss after. Listen carefully for yourself. We are exploring the cover-up.
It was reported that Mrs. Silvera died in her sleep at home on November 10. Sources say a photograph of the scene after the police were called showed blood stains, and that ignited the suspicion of the investigators. Things began to look bleak for the former politician a month later after an autopsy discovered bullet fragments in his wife's body. It further revealed that she was shot twice in the abdomen. That discovery triggered a new round of investigations by the Major Investigation Division, which is spearheading the investigation. The incident has resulted in widespread discourse, with Mr. Silvera's lawyer, Peter Champagne, cautioning social media, arguing that public comments could negatively impact the victim's young children. Melissa Silvera was laid to rest last Friday. Her husband, Jordan, openly cried through the tributes as he clinged on to his youngest son. Of note, none of the tributes mentioned Mr. Silvera, including this one by former PNP President and Prime Minister P.J. Patterson. He said, "This tribute ranks among the most difficult to write. So much has to be left unsaid."
Jason Kane, good evening and welcome. I want to zoom in on a particular part of this entire statement we heard. Pictures taken at the crime scene when the police was called. Bloodstain was identified in picture taken at the crime scene when police was called. Are we crazy in thinking that from the 10th of November, law enforcement, if not new, highly likely have the suspicion that Mrs. Silvera did not die peacefully? If what we are hearing in this news reporting that officers took photos at the scene where bloodstain was identified in those photos. It as the newscast is saying, it triggered suspicion from them. Was Mr. Silvera under investigation by the police on the 11th of November? What date before the 15th of December, when I think the autopsy report surfaced, that there was an investigation conducted into the death then of Melissa? Dr. Drayton Campbell came out on Instagram and cleared his name. Dr. Alfred Dawes does the same as well. Will Fitzbailey be able to tell us at some point who is on the probe for these photographs? The officer or more than one persons? Who else on the 10th knew Mr. Silvera was murdered? The wife of a prominent politician, we learn in a recording, and a news recording we heard the other day. Let me quickly cue back this for you, please, where it says the wife of a prominent politician in the People's National Party is being required, a statement is being sorted from her by the police. Did Peter Bunting and his wife attend the Silvera's residence on the night of the 10th of November? Did Peter Bunting and his wife take any part in the crime or the cover-up?
Expected to be at the MID headquarters Friday morning, where the police will move to on. Criminal charges are expected to be laid on former Member of Parliament for West St. Mary and Chairman of the People's National Party's founders group, Julian Silvera, after ballistics tests reportedly connected his firearm to the brutal murder of his wife, Melissa. The former MP is set to face murder-related charges in the coming hours. He remains in jail this morning. He's to undergo a final round of interrogation by detectives. More in this report. Silvera was picked up last evening at an Upper St. Andrew house by detectives from the Jamaica Constabulary Forces Major Investigation Division, MID. He was led away in handcuffs to the MID's headquarters on Spanish Town Road, then whisked away to a police lockup in the corporate area, where he spent the night behind bars. It was initially reported that Melissa Silvera died in her sleep. However, a post-mortem later disclosed that she was shot at least 3 times. Following this development, the police questioned Silvera twice. and seized his licensed firearm and his mobile phone. Extensive forensic work has reportedly established a connection between Silvera's gun and the murder of his wife, with whom he had a turbulent relationship. It's believed that Melissa was gunned down at the couple's home in Stony Hill, St. Andrew. Melissa's murder has sent shockwaves through the country. Her husband, Jolyon, who's now a suspect in her murder, is a high-profile former member of parliament. Up to the point where the death of his wife was treated as a murder investigation, he was busy on the campaign trail for the PNP and has been photographed in the company of the opposition leader. Melissa was the goddaughter of former Prime Minister and ex-PNP President P.J. Patterson. Her family is highly regarded in the halls of the PNP. In a heartfelt written tribute that was included in the program at her funeral, which was held 2 weeks ago, Mr. Patterson grieved for Melissa, whom he described as his niece. The former Prime Minister expressed condolences to Melissa's 3 boys, but did not mention by name her late husband, Jolyon Silvera. The police investigation into the murder of Melissa Silvera has led to statements being taken from several people who visited the scene after news surfaced of her demise. A statement was reportedly collected from PNP Vice President and Member of Parliament for Northwest Manchester, Michael Phillips. It's understood that the police also made arrangements to collect a statement from the wife of a high-profile PNP politician who visited the bloody scene when news surfaced that Melissa died in her sleep. It's not immediately clear if that statement was collected. Statements have also reportedly been collected from individuals who Mr. Silvera is alleged to have told that Melissa had passed away in her sleep while she was in his company. And Jolyon Silvera is reportedly strongly denying wrongdoing. The embattled PNP politician has hired King's Counsel Peter Champagny. Champagny is expected to be at the MID headquarters Friday morning, where the police will move to undergo a final round of interrogation of his client. It's expected that Mr. Silvera will then be prosecuted and brought before the criminal court. Tona Thomas for Nationwide News.
Hoina Andrew Blake, good evening and welcome. First time seeing you on the live. Welcome and thank you for joining us. My question here. Sonia Wint, good evening and welcome. I'm not beating up on Mr. Golden. It is our duty as citizens to investigate crime if the police is covering them up. Or it is our duty as citizens, as the government of Jamaica, to ask our administrators questions. If Peter Bunting's wife visited the bloody scene, Peter Bunting, Joan Sinclair, good evening and welcome. Peter Bunting would have known that Mrs. Silvera was murdered. Peter Bunting and Mark Golden have a long-standing business relationship. Kennisburg, good afternoon and welcome. No doubt they have a long-standing friendship before and outside the political arena. Did Golden stand by? Did Peter Bunting stood by and allow Jolyon Silvera to mislead, to lie to Mark Golden, so Mark Golden could mislead the nation in assisting Silvera in the cover-up? Ada James, good evening and welcome. Patricia Matthews, good evening and welcome. If Peter Bunting's wife visited the bloody scene, if Peter Bunting visited the murder scene, did Peter Bunting lie to Mark Golden? Or did Mark Golden knew from the 10th of November that Melissa Silvera was murdered? How wide is this cover-up? How wide is this cover-up in the People's National Party? Is this the reason why the People's National Party cannot distance themselves from Jolyon Silvera? Because all of them, or a lot of them, went to the Silvera's residence on the night of the 10th of November, stepped over a dead woman, men and women, but all they sought was to protect their patriarchy in society. Because all of them who went to the crime scene on the night of the 10th of November, if the story is true, all of them stepped over the body of Melissa Silvera while helping Julian Silvera to clean the crime scene, cover the crime. This is disgraceful that these are the people, the very people who could be our next government, the very people who could be our next government is fully wedged slap bang in the middle of the worst crime and cover-up we've ever seen in upper echelons Jamaica. Will Mark Golden clarify this debacle, or will he be prepared to be slaughtered going through this election campaign? How wide is this cover-up? Who else will be arrested as a part of the cover-up? Who, other than the police officer, took a picture of the bloody crime scene? Has the police managed to secure a statement from the wife of Peter Bunting? And if not the wife of Peter Bunting, from the wife of the permanent People's National Party politician that visited the bloody scene? You all knew on the 10th of November that Melissa Silvera was murdered. All of you put the narrative in public. She died peacefully in her sleep with her husband next to her. All of you who told that story, all of you who allowed that story to run in public, who knew from the 10th of November that she was murdered, is guilty of the cover-up. This is where DRIVETIME London ends it this evening. Thank you all for being here. Those on TikTok, thank you very much for your support. To those on the X, on Twitch, on Facebook, and on YouTube, thank you all for joining us. And we will definitely, I will stay for 10 minutes. I will hold on a bit. If anybody wants to call who has an opinion and the widening, unfolding cover-up that the People's National Party is intertwined in and has no sight of giving any clarity to the story. They're prepared to walk into an election in blind silence, thinking that their silence is going to bring us to silence at some point. This is a historic crime. Our country is riddled by crime. But this particular crime is a historic crime in our country. She died peacefully in her sleep. We then were told, no, she was murdered. There was at least 3 bullets discovered in her body. There were about 3 bullets discovered in her body. And then we were told the husband wasn't at home. We were told the husband wasn't at home. We were told Mr. Silvera wasn't at home. And then all these narratives were allowed to run in public, while a lot of these people in the People's National Party hierarchy knew from get-go Melissa Silvera was murdered. And all of them wants us to go into silence because no one wants Mount Golden chances to be jeopardized at the poll. But if Mount Golden doesn't want his chances to be jeopardized at the poll, what Mount Golden ought to do is to put out a clarifying statement, not just clarified or lied to us that he was lied to. Because more and more, a piece of the white sheet of this white collar crime get pulled back. We are seeing that no, the narrative given initially on the 11th of November, it wasn't a mistake. They didn't miss anything. It was deliberate. Why did no one say anything until the pathologist gave an honest report? The JCF photograph or others who've taken photograph at the scene of the crime, there were blood stains. What else was notable on the crime scene that they have hidden from us, that they have lied to us about? Head Teacher K, good evening and welcome to Global Television.
Good evening, good evening. Listen, Wayne, we're talking about the fact that they are trying to rewrite a narrative. But what I find interesting is how Fitz Bailey also lied to the public. He came forward and he said that it is not the role of the doctor to identify whether or not there has been a crime scene, that the doctor is just supposed to pronounce whether or not the person is deceased. And that is it.
What was the role of the police then?
Exactly. So at the end of the day, if they're now coming back to twist the narrative to say that they already suspected that there was blood on the scene, so therefore the doctor must have also identified that something was not right, that there was a crime committed. So all of these lies that they're trying to repaint in the eyes of the public are to cover their incompetencies and their deceit. At the end of the day,
I don't think there was any incompetency here, Head Teacher K. I think it was corruption and deceit.
Of course, corruption. Of course, corruption. Now, at the end of the day, somebody did not get bought out.
Yes.
Somebody refused to back down and refused to let justice fly.
Yes.
So, because that person came out and spoke, they had no choice but to face the music. You understand? And I would not be surprised if Patterson had a hand to play in this to ensure that there was justice for his goddaughter.
I do believe so. When you listen to PJ Patterson's speech as well, the man is ripped to pieces.
You know what I mean? The mere fact that he left out his name, that in itself is a solid insult. It's more than a shade, it's the whole forest. You understand? So, that's telling us that he had his suspicions, he had his beliefs from there.
We're generally used to the JCF being corrupt and our studio. I'm back in. Thank you very much. Is the People's National Party Head Teacher K acting really disgracefully on this matter to do with the murder of Melissa Silvera?
But of course they are. Remember, that this man who is now accused of murder was the head of his security team. So Bruce Golden is not happy about the fact that this is all coming to light. He wants to get the Prime Minister role so bad that it's all about tidying up his image. But he had a murderer right under his nose. What does that say?
And at no point, Head Teacher K, from say mid-December to now, Golden has not sought to make any correction or give any clarity in public. What does this say about Mark Golden's credibility as a future leader for our country?
Exactly. It says a lot about his character. He is duplicitous and cannot be trusted. That's my opinion. Thank you.
You're welcome, Head Teacher K. Thanks for calling. That was Head Teacher K. And for those of you here, I think most of you who know Head Teacher K is, but if you don't know, just make sure you check out Head Teacher K Speaks on YouTube and Facebook. She always is one who is looking out to shed light on the truth. VM, good evening and welcome. VM's been late. But the Silvera issue is shedding so much light. Shashamaliland. I understand there was a lot of, hold on, the Shasha. I understand there was a lot of yes, USV vehicle at the Silvera resident on the night. Yes, a lot of us keep asking that question, Shashamali. There was quite a lot of SUVs keep going and coming from the Silvera's resident. Was Peter Bunting or his wife an occupant in any of these SUVs? JJ, good evening and welcome. That was going back and forth from the Silvera's resident. In the news broadcast, who is the wife of the permanent politician who visited the bloody scene? If it was Peter Bunting's wife, did Peter Bunting knew it was a murder? Obviously, one would draw the inference. Did Peter Bunting lie to Mark Golden when Silvera called him to say, my wife died peacefully, and Mark Golden took to social media and start letting the world know Mrs. Silvera died peacefully with Julian next to her? Did Mark Golden knew he was misled? Did Mark Golden knew he was lying to the country? Or did Mark Golden choose to lie to the country to protect a man who was still on the campaign trail for him after November the 10th, 2003? That man, Julian Silvera, was still out there campaigning as a part of Mark Golden's team. That man, Silvera, is said to be the head of Mark Golden's security team. Does Mark Golden have a duty and a responsibility to speak to the nation? If Mark Golden says he wants to be the next leader for our country, is he under a duty to answer to us? Is Mark Golden under a duty to answer to us if is Mark Golden under a duty to answer to us? Okay, thank you. I'm reading a text from someone who's possibly on the live. You know yourself. Thank you very much. Thank you. Did Mark Golden lie to us? Was Mark Golden misled to lie to us? Did others lie to Mark Golden to lie to us? One thing for sure, we knew we were lied to. Who knew they were lying to us? Who deliberately lied to us? We will continue to ask these questions. The more the crime and the cover-up, which is worse than the crime, continue to unfold. BCA Senate, you've just come on as we are ending. But thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your support from day to day. Thank you very much. And we will go off to get a rest now. I might just come back to have a chit chat later. I cannot read anymore for today. My eyes are seriously glary. I will have to back off. I will have to back off from the devices to give my eyes time to recuperate. Probably get out in the dark as well, get out of the lights in the house and things. And probably now that it's a bit dark, go to the park for a walk. And try to come back tonight for just a general chit chat where we can ask each other question and go back and forth in a conversation. So to those on, there's quite a few of you on TikTok. Thank you all very much. I'm awfully sorry. Over TikTok, the writing is so fine. I really cannot see anything. I'm not ignoring my followers and supporters over TikTok. I really appreciate you all, but I will need a magnifying glass to see a lot of what is going on over here. But thank you all very much. I really appreciated your support, and I look forward for you every time you get that ping that I'm going live. Thank you very much, and good evening to all, and we'll see you later this evening. Thank you.